Let's jump into the Sunday night football game. Let's do that one first. Philadelphia Eagles and the Los Angeles Rams. The Eagles end up winning this game 37-20. Man, the Eagles are absolutely rolling right now. We're going to dig into sort of their strategy and how it is working for them. But first, let's get to the top 5 graded Philadelphia Eagle players in this game. At the top of the list, we have edge rusher Brandon Graham with a 91.1 grade. Wide receiver A.J. Brown. Right behind him with an 89.8. Offensive tackle Jordan Mailata with an 89.5. Running back Saquon Barkley an 87.9. And then linebacker Nakobe Dean an 83.8. Boy, to have 5 players graded above 83 in this one, that just shows you how good the Eagles are playing right now. Jalen Hurts in this game, a 66.6. Doesn't have to do a lot right now, and so I think that's why you see the grades a little bit lower. But again, we'll dig into Jalen Hurts as well as some of the rest of these players. On the Los Angeles Rams side of things, guard Kevin Dotson with an 88.8, wide receiver Puka Nacua an 83.9, defensive tackle Braden Fisk a 78.4, offensive tackle Eric Jackson with a 72.0, and then safety Cam Curl rounded it out at number 5 with a 69.3. Quarterback Matthew Stafford in this one, a 72.4 PFF grade. Dalton, I will start as we always do with the stat that told the story here in the Philadelphia Eagles with a 17-point win on the road. Tell me, what was the stat that told the story?
I don't even think it's a stat that tells the story. I think it's just the story, and the story is Saquon Barkley.
Story of the season, honestly.
It could be at the end of it, especially at 302 total yards, 2 touchdowns, 87.9 overall grade. I think the big thing for me is more so than the last couple of years when the Eagles were using a dominant offensive line to kind of uplift the production of average or just maybe above average running backs. Now you have an elite running back behind an elite offensive line. 29 explosive runs this year, leads the league. Last year, the whole regular season, Eagles running backs had 34.
Yeah.
He might pass this number next week. So you look at just the explosive element that he has, and then the amount that they're relying on him, okay? So the NFL right now, teams run the ball about 39-40% of the time on average. Their first 4 games, when the Eagles were 2-2, they were right around that. Since their bye week in week 5, they're running the ball 56.5% of the time. It's Saquon Barkley, and it's everything else working off it. It's play action then. A.J. Brown, obviously Devontae Smith didn't play last night, but when he's healthy, Dallas Goedert can get going. But they're riding just like they did 2 years ago. Offensive line, elite running game, elite defense. This is, I believe it's still the highest graded defense in football right now. Ever since Cooper DeJean especially went to the starting lineup in the slot, that was their biggest weakness. Zach Bond and Nakobe Dean, who you saw in that top 5 right there. Everything's rolling for the Eagles right now, but it starts with Barkley as the engine of the whole thing. They are playing better complementary football than almost everybody probably except Detroit right now, and it's the formula that worked that got them to the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and it's working right now.
Yeah, 2 things that I want to say. The first one is, everybody's immediate reaction, because this is just a Twitter thing, and I understand. When Saquon Barkley has a day or a night like the one that he had last night, everybody likes to go LOL Giants, right? Everybody likes to go to what happened with the Giants, how they kind of fumbled that, let Saquon Barkley out. I mean, you draft him, number 2 overall when you do, so you spend high draft capital on him. He has an incredible rookie year, really couldn't duplicate that whether he was healthy or not. You let him out of the building, and it felt like, okay, they want to bring him back, but not really exactly at the right price. He goes to a rival in the Philadelphia Eagles, and he is their entire offense and probably the reason why the Eagles are going to end up winning the NFC East again. And I think that when you look at this situation, the Giants were in a different spot, right? You cannot compare exactly what Saquon Barkley is doing right now to where the Giants were. The Giants are not in a place to pay a running back that much money. They're just not. Even one that is as game-changing and offensive-changing as Saquon Barkley is. The rest of the team is not there yet for the New York Giants. And so it made sense why they were a little bit hesitant, not just to allow Saquon to sort of name his price. Now, you could say to yourself, hey, did they go about it exactly the way that they should have? Maybe not. And I think that part of the criticism can be fair with Saquon Barkley. But to just simply say, oh, it was the same situation, the Giants let him out and the Eagles signed him, very different. The Eagles, sort of like what you mentioned, some areas of their team that was missing from last year that Saquon is just taking them to another level. I mean, when you look at the Eagles football team and some of their quote-unquote team needs going into this season, get more explosive out of the backfield, more consistent in their run game, because it was way too much was on Jalen Hurts' plate last year, and you saw the turnover-worthy plays, bump up because of it, and Jalen's so much better when he's a point guard. You could be a point guard with Saquon Barkley. So it was improve the run game, improve the linebacker level, and get better certainly in the secondary, on the outside with Darius Slay, and then in the slot. They did all three of those at an extremely high football level, and that's what you see a really good football team playing the way that they are. So I just wanted to say, I don't think it's a one-to-one situation where you could just totally dunk on the Giants every single time that Saquon Barkley does something well. Now, does it end up maybe costing Joe Shane and Brian Dable their jobs? Maybe, but it's not like it was the worst organizational decisional failure in the world. Two, I want to say this because boss man Chris Collinsworth said last night on the broadcast that the Eagles' offense right now, it feels like layups and three-pointers. It feels like the Golden State Warriors, right? It's a layup every time that you give it to Saquon Barkley because it's a guaranteed two, and it could be something that's just like, all right, we know we're going to have success every time we hand the ball off to this guy. And then it's the shot plays. And to me, how A.J. Brown played versus the Rams cornerbacks is the stat that told the story for me, because not only did they get the layups, why do teams really want to run the football? Because it's easy, right? There's no risk involved. You hike the ball, you turn around, you hand it to the guy, he puts it in the chest, normally handles the football well, runs forward. That's it. It's very simple. When you throw the football, you physically have to put the football in the air, suspend the ball in the air where no team has it, and it's totally up for grabs. You don't have to do that when you run the football. So that's the layup. A.J. Brown's the three-pointer. And when you have three-pointers like with A.J. Brown, who had in this game 7 targets, 6 catches, over 100 yards again, and we mentioned a near elite wide receiver grade, 4 plays of 15 or more yards. Now you have a complementary offense. Now you have something like the Golden State Warriors where they're totally unstoppable on offense because you cannot defend both of these things. So I thought it was a great analogy that they brought up. The Eagles offense, it's three-pointers and it's layups, and to me that was a stat that told the story of an offense that's really humming.
And Hurts knows when to check. I think some of the biggest decisions made by a defensive coordinator as always is how many do we put in the box, and then how do we go about that coverage behind it? And the problem is if you try to put 8 in the box and go man-to-man on the outside against Brown and Smith and even inside with Goddard where he always gets mismatches, you're going to lose that battle too. I think the Eagles, they're so tough to run man coverage against, so now you have to play zone coverage because of the receivers and Hurts' feet. If you play man coverage against Hurts, you're running the danger of him running the football, and then you have to marry the coverage with the front, and then you have to find a way to get through the best offensive line in football right now. There's so many problems, and the answer to stopping the Eagles right now really is you just have to be better than them because they have so many options, and schematically there's always a problem on the field, whether you want to lean towards coverage or into the run game.
Just looking at large, sort of before we get into our most impressive and most disappointing, everyone's just saying, hey, Lions are getting the 1 seed. Lions are going to get the 1 seed. Lions are going to get the 1 seed. Eagles are 9-2. Eagles are 9-2 right there, and we'll get to the Vikings. We'll obviously talk about the Vikings, who are also 9-2, right on the heels of the Detroit Lions, who are 10-1. But it's a situation where I think, again, everybody just kind of talks about the Lions as representing the NFC in the Super Bowl, and not to take anything away from them. Obviously, they're a monster of a team, but Eagles are right there, and they're keeping pace with them to potentially get the 1 seed in the NFC. My most impressive in this game, I'm going to go with Brandon Graham. And I'm going to go with Brandon Graham because he was the highest graded player in this game for the Philadelphia Eagles. 91.6 defensive grade, 87.0 run defense grade, 79.8 pass rush grade. But also as sort of a nod to respect for not just the season, but the career that Brandon Graham is having, because unfortunately it was announced that he tore his tricep last night and he's going to be done for the season. He was emotional afterwards. There were pictures and videos of him in the locker room getting really emotional. Nick Sirianni didn't want to talk about it. They asked Nick Sirianni about Brandon Graham, and Nick's like, I'm not ready to talk about it. Like, hell of a player, one of my favorite players that I've ever had the opportunity to coach, and I'm not ready to talk about Brandon Graham being done, because this was going to be the last year for Brandon Graham. And so for it to go out like this, and even he said afterwards, I can't remember the exact quote, I might be paraphrasing a little bit here, but he was like, hey, if this is it for me, I gave the game everything I had. And it's just, it was a beautiful moment. It's a beautiful statement when you could say that with your whole chest and your whole heart and just know that it's true. It's a phenomenal player, one that has a Hall of Fame type of case to him. I don't know if he's going to get in the Hall of Fame, but he's a player who was with the same organization for 15 years, was his 14th, 15th year. I think that's special in and of itself, to have the longevity, to stay with a team and an organization that long. I mean, it's just so cool, not to mention the success that he has had as a player. So my most impressive, I'm giving it to Brandon Graham, not only because he deserved it for this game, but he deserves the nod for the year and the career that he has had, if this is in fact where he hangs it up. So shout out to Brandon Graham.
For sure, one of the best players of the last decade, and I think one of the more underappreciated players of the last decade. Was he the last remaining piece from that Super Bowl victory?
Oh,
I think he might be the last guy on the team that still remains, because that was 2017, wasn't it?
Lane would have been on the team.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, Lane Johnson.
Lane Johnson would have been on the team.
Yep.
Would Mailata have been on the team?
No, I don't think so. If he was, he might have been a rookie and a backup, but I don't think, because he's only 27 right now. Speaking of,
he is only 27. Yeah, you're right.
While you're looking that up,
drafted in 2018. So no.
Okay, speaking of my most impressive, actually, how about that left tackle Jordan Mailata?
Yeah.
And you know what? When Mailata has been on the field healthy, the Eagles have had the best offensive line in football, and in this game he was great again. 89.5 overall. Only allowed one pressure. Jared Verse got him once. It happens. Jared Verse is a freak. 92.5 run blocking grade. If you want a reason, at least some reason other than his own talent, that Saquon Barkley is doing all this, Jordan Mailata and this offensive line, 11 positively graded run blocks last night. And look, the Rams have a really good young defensive line, but they got a welcome to the NFL moment facing Mailata and this crew. And since he's been back, it's just hit another level. These 5 guys up front, Mailata, Dickerson, Juergens, Becton, Johnson, it doesn't get any better than that. And again, since he's gotten healthy, he missed a few weeks with injury. They were struggling at left tackle with backups for a bit. He's one of the elite players in football at any position. He's just been incredible this year, and he's going to continue to be that. Like you just mentioned, he's only 27, and it seems like he's only getting better.
Yeah. You're most disappointing in this game.
Just, again, the Rams they have so many young kids on the offensive and defensive lines.
Yeah.
For a lot of first, second-year players, this was welcome to the NFL, because this
Definitely.
was elite-level trench play from the Eagles. And look, they battled. I won't tell you they didn't battle. Got Jared Verse, Brandon Fisk. Bo Limmer had a tough night on the inside, and certainly not a guy who was expecting to start most of the games at center. We've talked about this before, but this was an experienced, dominant front on both sides of the ball for the Eagles, beating a talented young front on both sides for the Rams. They're going to get better. They're going to learn from a game like this, but it was certainly a dominant effort in the trenches both ways.
Yeah, I agree with you. Jared Verse, I mean, this is my most disappointing as well, because I thought it was a fantastic test for these young defensive linemen who are playing this season very, very well. And it's been, I think, over the last month, if I remember the timeline correctly, the 3rd highest defensive line graded in the NFL. And so they were coming in to face Philadelphia. It was at home. It was a great test. It was a great opportunity for them to be playing some of their best ball, going up against one of the best in the NFL in the Philadelphia Eagles. And it was kind of tough for them. 50.1 overall grade for Byron Young, 40.8 overall grade from Jared Verse, 36.0 for Tyler Davis, 56.1 for Bobby Brown III. Kobe Turner had a 67.2, Michael Hoyt has 69.9, and Braden Fisk had a 78.4. So Fisk, get 1 or 2 sacks on this game. Had 3 solo stops, so he was the top guy, but really outside of Fisk, nobody was able to be a big difference maker for them. But it'll be a learning game for them, which I'm excited to see how they respond next week. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you like and subscribe the video. And if you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, you can get one to see all the premium stats that we talked about here on the show, plus the expert betting and fantasy advice over at subscribe.pff.com. The description is also right below, so if you are not a PFF Plus subscriber, you can become one today.